Hi. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what day you're watching me and what time. I hope you're having a beautiful day. Elaine Marolakos Edelson here with Astrology Mojo. Want to help you get your mojo back. So before I start talking about Ophiuchus, otherwise known as Serpentarius, that 13th sign supposedly, I just want to check in with people and see how everyone is doing. So now that we are officially in Mercury, no, we are not, Venus retrograde. So what women or friends or what impact have women made in your life so far? Hey, Elizabeth is here. Well, I had the good fortune of, in the pre-phase of Venus retrograde, an old friend came back, found me because of Facebook Live, and then another old friend found me because of Facebook Live, and we had a lovely chat this morning. Thanks for being there, Leslie. You're so awesome. And it was great to talk to her again. And it brought, it's kind of funny when you start looking back. I mean, that's what the retrogrades are for. When you start looking back, you assess who you are so that you can move forward with greater ease, we hope. And hi, Elizabeth, with more wisdom and feeling more confident and more intuitive. Your mojo. That's what we want to do. So when I was talking with Leslie this morning, we just dove right in. I don't know how long it's been since I've spoken to her, maybe 20 years, 15, I don't even know. And we both have daughters close in age, and we were just kind of like gabbing about the kids. And then I stopped and went, you know what? It's so great to talk to you again. She went, I know. I saw you at Facebook Live. It's my friend. So that's what I love about retrogrades. When the past comes back and it's more of the happier, sentimental reflection of, gosh, what happened? When people start to separate, hi, Gail, when people start to separate and they go their separate ways and they have their lives and suddenly they reunite, there's so much that you can look back on and see how you've grown. I mean, really, that's what retrogrades show you, how you've grown. And with this Venus in retrograde, it's not just been one gal who came back from my past, but several. And then also me, thinking about who I used to be as a young woman, and so much different than who I am now. And so it's such an interesting time. So tell me, who here has heard from their past via a woman? Anyone so far? All right, I'm going to put my glasses on so then I can see better. And I can stop bumping into the microphone. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about Ophiuchus, also known as Serpentarius. It's actually got many different names. The constellation is what we're talking about. Gallet says, yes, seeing this on the twin flame level too. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. When we look at astrology is very dense in math, and I become dense when I look at math. So my calculations sometimes are intuitive, or I follow a formula, but then I'll forget it because math doesn't always stick with me. I do my best. I'm more of an intuitive astrologer, and I understand things from that level. There's so many different versions, over 30 systems of astrological systems, over 30 astrological systems by which a person can calculate information. And then there are two main components that separate the East or we'll call it Eastern and Western. And the tropical system in Western astrology is based on the Earth's relationship to the planets and the constellations. The sidereal foundation is based on the relationships of the planets to each other and to the constellations. And in sidereal, you would come up with Vedic astrology. So it's basically a 23-degree difference in your lifetime. So if you were to have a Vedic astrology chart done, your sign might be very different. Hi, Becca. Welcome. Your sign might be different. So if you subtract 23 degrees from your sun sign, you would find out your Vedic sun sign. I'm an Aries in Vedic astrology. And in Western astrology, I'm a Taurus. Now, I like to give credence to all different systems because they do have information, but ultimately, it's the interpreter. It is the astrologer who gives the information that will have the most impact based on what their understanding is of their version or system of astrology. So when I talk about the potential 13th sign, and it's almost as if it came up and then it was a given, like, oh yeah, there's a 13th sign. And then people between Sagittarius and Scorpio and Sagittarius started to freak out. Like, what? Well, wait, what sign am I if I'm not this? You're still what you are. If you were born anywhere between October and December, you're still who you are. That is your sign. The thing about Serpentarius, also the more modern name is, I have my notes here. We're going to talk about Ptolemy in a second. But the thing about this Ophiuchus, which is Greek for the serpent bearer, the person who wrestles with the serpent. And long ago, way back, when the constellations were first being discovered, the Babylonians, the Thracians, the early Greeks, and the Egyptians, what they saw in the sky, they started to take notations. And what they saw in the sky were the consistent constellations, where at one time people believed that the sun traveled around the earth, and we know that's not true. But in astrology, we look at how the sun moves through a different constellation each month to bring us to 12 months, and that gives us the 12 signs. So when we look at a particular zodiac belt from thousands of years ago, and what the ancients and astronomers at the time, the astronomers and the astrologers were one and the same, but then they got separated along the way. So what the ancients actually notated, and Ptolemy, an ancient 2nd century astronomer, made a list of what constellations were noted in the sky. Now, different countries had the Persians had different names. The Babylonians, they had different names, but they meant the same constellations. And at the time, they notated 48. And one of the constellations that they saw were the Serpentarius, Ophiuchus. Just easier to say Serpentarius. But the thing about the today there are actually 88 constellations that we know of. But the thing about the constellations and what the astronomers and astrologers at the time notated and decided to create for future generations was, which are the constellations that we see throughout the equinoxes. And let me just show you. The ecliptic is the apparent path of a planet around the sun. And in astrology, you put the Earth at the center, and it is the path, the apparent path of the sun around the Earth. But we know that that's not true, but that's the theoretical definition. So this is what the ecliptic looks like. Okay, you've got the sun at the center, and there's this motion that occurs with all the planets in our solar system that move on this oblong path around the sun. And so as this motion occurs, the astronomers and astrologers at the time notated, oh, okay, so there's pretty much 10 plus 2, 12 constellations that are fully viewed 12 months out of the year. The rest of them are partial. So the Serpentarius, Ophiuchus, is only seen a portion of the year, and of that portion, only what would be noted as the visual of Serpentarius is a man wrestling a snake. And the actual constellation that is seen from the point of view of the Earth are his feet. Only the bottom half of the constellation is seen half of the year. So this is why, one of the reasons why I do not adhere to the notion that there is a 13th sign. And on top of that, the planets that we look at today in our solar system, our zodiac, do not officially move through fully through Serpentarius or Ophiuchus. And so we base astrology on the relationship and the definitions and the mirror reflected images of the planets in the zodiac. And here they are again, the planets in the zodiac and how they relate to us on Earth. As far as I have read and known, there are no specific planets in the Serpentarius or the Ophiuchus constellation. There are stars, and the stars have some planets, and they're called exostars or exoplanets, but nothing is known yet about them. So to start to create interpretations based on this potential 13th sign is something that is in its infancy stage. Now, what I do believe, however, in thousands of years, as our planetary system begins to expand, which it has been doing, the moon is further away from the Earth than it used to be. And in about 150 years, it'll be so far out that we may not have full lunar eclipses anymore. And then in a few million years, it'll be even further out. So as the planets alter their orbit on the ecliptic around the sun, and we start to expand in our universe, we will start to see the shift of constellations and the broadening of our view from the point of view of the Earth. And then we might add a 13th sign. But until then, we're seeing the beginnings of what maybe thousands of years ago astronomers might have noted, like, oh, what are those stars up there that we only see 6 months out of the year? Let's notate those and see what happens by degree. And literally everything is done by degree in astrology. And so over the course of the years, and just imagine the day you were born, there was a snapshot taken of what the universe looked like on the day that you were born. And that snapshot is then put onto the general chart astrology. And we can see your rising sign, where the planets land in which house. Each house is 30 degrees. And so if you count 12 times 30, 12 houses times 30 degrees approximately, that's 360 days. And then considering February, which doesn't have the same amount of days. So eventually 365 days get accounted for in a 12-month calendar year on Earth. But imagine being a couple of thousand years ago and looking at the constellations and saying, oh, that star used to be over there. Now it's over here. What's happening? So as we evolve, as the universe evolves, as we evolve, as science evolves, as we start to see the definitions of calculations like the day you were born, that snapshot, those planets are not in the same position that they were the day you were born. They have moved. We have moved. The Earth has tilted its axis. It's called a wobble. The Earth has wobbles and the moon has wobbles, and it vibrates just ever so. And so these different calculations alter our viewpoint of the constellations, and these different calculations also alter our perception of what's happening with the planets and versus the planets doing something to you, which they don't, which used to be the definition in astrology. And if you listen to any astrologers out there who tell you that the planets are doing something to you, I want you to switch over to a different channel and start to see that everything in this world is a reflection of you. Everything out there is a reflection of who you are and who you are becoming. So, pretty cool, huh? Though, we're at the infancy stage, though, and we're looking at the beginning of a potential 13th sign. But it's going to take a few thousand years before we even get that close. And so that's my answer to the question, because people have been asking, what about this 13th sign? And am I really still a Sagittarian? And what am I supposed to be brave like Serpentarius and Ophiuchus? Okay, yeah, well, let's check back in our future lives when we come back together and we talk about it then. I'll be doing mind melding somehow, instead of Facebook Live, I'll be doing mind melding in 2,000 years. And you'll just know, because I'll think it and it'll be there. Ta-da! Okay, so unless you have any questions about that 13th sign, I am going to... here's another bit of information that I didn't say. On that ecliptic, which is the apparent path of the planets around the sun, there is an 8-degree north and an 8-degree south of where we would rein in those constellations. So that's why we only see the feet of Ophiuchus, because Ophiuchus constellation is outside of that degree of our zodiac system and what we look at in astrology. All right, so what else? Today is a new moon in Libra. I think it's pretty fascinating. And a new moon, if you're not familiar with new moons, let me just take a sip. Unless you have a question, let me just take a minute here. This is a picture of our daughter, like when she was 5, and our dog, Coda. Our little girls. Okay, new moon in Libra. So what can a new moon imply, especially during this retrograde? Oh, by the way, I'll be back on Thursday and I'll be talking about the pre-phase. It's called the shadow period of the Mercury in retrograde, which begins in mid-November, so that you can get ahead of things. And, if you have to get technology upgraded or get your car serviced or things like that. So we're going to talk about that. But a new moon basically is part of the 28-day cycle of a moon phase. And during a new moon, it is energetically one of the most vibrant, electric times, depending also on the sign that it's in. It's in an air sign, Libra. But it's one of the most electric times to begin something that you would like to see completed by typically a full moon. So that would be in 28 days, or the next full moon in next month. So think about Libra. What does Libra like to do? Libra loves to cook, sometimes drink a little bit too much. Libra loves art and design and balancing and harmonizing and creating romance and investing in finances. And even though we are in a Venus in retrograde through November 16th, but then add another week, 10 days before we actually move out of it, I want you to make a list of things that you would like to change. Small things. They don't have to be big. Small things, and not about your persona. Your physical appearance, because we tend to shy in a Venus retrograde from a makeover or any kind of surgery and that kind of thing. But what aesthetically would you like to explore that doesn't involve too much work or too much money, where you don't have to paint your walls or, reinvent your kitchen, on some level. So think about these things, because with the Venus retrograde in Scorpio, there's a lot of desire now to do something different or to take a break from the mundane or the routine that you've been in. So with this new moon for the next 28-day cycle, we're looking at, and I will tell you the next full moon. So we're looking at this time of creating harmony. And harmony as it relates to, because we're in Libra, Venus is a guide to Libra, and Venus is retrograde. So I want you to go in and assess for yourself which parts of your personality don't suit you. Just like you would give away clothes that don't fit you anymore. I want you to look at parts of your personality that don't suit you. Is it being too needy? Is it being too aloof? Is it being too arrogant at times? I want you to note your behavior, especially with other women. What is the feeling you get when you meet someone new who's a woman? Or what is the feeling you get when you have judgments? Remember, retrogrades always bring up the judgments. When you meet a woman who is now transitioned to a man, or perhaps the other way around. Or when you meet a woman who is, in Scorpio, could be very intense in your face. How does it affect you? What does it bring up for you? Does it bring up mom issues or sister issues or abandonment issues with women? This is a really great time to look at all of these things. Let me just check my calendar. By the way, I use, because people have asked and actually went out and bought, I use the Jim Maynard's Astrology notebook. It's a date book. Jim Maynard, I find it really fascinating, great information, and the pages themselves, you can make little notes, and it tells you what's going on astrologically. So today's the new moon in Libra, and we're going to be looking for harmonizing, for creating maybe a great meal. Instead of sitting in front of the TV with a frozen thing, you might say, hey, let's cook together. So these feelings are going to come out about being more harmonious. And I'm going to look at the 28 days as soon as I can find. Okay, the full moon is on October 24th, and that will be in the sign of Taurus. Also, Libra, Venus guided. Libra guides, Venus guides Libra and Taurus. I'm tongue-tied. So by the full moon, we want to resolve at least one issue that deals with a woman or your own feminine energy, or what it means to have more harmony or financial security in your life. Let's look at those topics, or even the way you feel about what you look like. Maybe with as I've mentioned before in several of the different live events, and this is constant for Venus whenever, this is timeless, that Venus, as it represents Libra and Taurus, can also deal with your adrenals and your thyroid. So think about those parts of your body. What can you do to support those areas? What are you doing that is really disallowing harmony into your life? And so that if you apply these definitions and then you look between today, you begin something new, you might say, I'm going to start a new exercise routine without going to extremes. Maybe it's 3 days a week. I just walk a little bit more, or I'm going to eat less carbs, less sugar, and I'm going to have more vegetables and more protein, healthier fats. Maybe it's about examining how you feel about your bodily functions as a woman, or maybe you need to get a massage and start to feel more sensual in your body. Sensual is not sexual. You start to feel more sexual, great. But if you're going through something hormonal, maybe it's just about loving who you are more. And I use that loosely because, love is not a verb. Love is who you are anyway. But if you have to add a verb to understand how to love yourself, then go for it. Okay, so does anybody have any issues with their body right now? I'd like to look at that astrologically. And by that I mean headaches or upset stomachs, and also let me know your sun sign. And if you know your rising sign, then it would tie into what's going on with Venus and also the Mercury in retrograde coming up. Our daughter, who is a Taurus sun sign, has been having some, and it started about a week ago. Oh, the ear was itchy, hurting, and then the stomach ache this morning, and then the sleepless night. And so we started to talk to Aaliyah about eating better. And, when you're 19, although I think Aaliyah's doing a great job, but when you're 19, you tend to, it's 1 a.m. I forgot to have dinner. Maybe I'll have a snack bar or something other. So let me know how you're feeling right now, and physically or emotionally. Are you a little down? Sometimes we enter retrogrades, especially a Venus retrograde. If you are a Scorpio, Libra or Taurus, any version of sun, rising, or moon, you might start to feel a little removed from something. Or you might start to feel, or if you have relatives, children, a spouse, they might start to experience something physical. And my husband, Dean, was born in a Venus retrograde, and he had a couple of minor physical issues this past week, which he's had before, not just because of the Venus retrograde, but they're coming back now. So I researched some acupressure points that he could do, and our daughter, same issue with the ear and the eye section. And so we're interested to know about how to heal more, and how to use this energy and these definitions to help you get back on track, get that mojo back. Okay, so Gallet says, sun and moon in Gemini. I think the rising is Taurus. I've been getting headaches. My Aaliyah, Taurus, is also having similar effects as your daughter as well. More deja vu moments. She is only 10. Aw. Okay, so if your daughter, a Taurus, is starting to feel a little wonky at the age of 10, so then her body is changing, right? I mean, all the time we go through these changes. And it can be that certain foods are not being digested well, or if there's anxiety issues, there might be some amino acids that you can incorporate. Always check with your doctor. I do not hand out medical advice. I have to say that as a disclaimer. But things like GABA are chewables, and they're great for neurotransmitters, help to make the connections. And then PS100 amino acid that really helps with a long word name that I can't pronounce. It ends in fisticetidine or something. And anyway, you get those in chewable form as well, little gummies, and they help relieve anxiety. As a person starts to grow into their, when they go from childhood to the next phase of preteen, there's a whole lot of moving and shaking, and they go from playful, happy to the pressure of life, it's too much. And if you've got a Taurus rising, you say you think you have a Taurus rising, okay, and you're getting headaches, so you want to examine your diet as well, and look at what you could do differently. Is it a hormone thing to have your body checked out? And people say to me, oh, but you said don't go to a doctor in a Venus retrograde. No. What I'm suggesting is that you don't have cosmetic surgery in a Venus retrograde. But if you have issues, you go to a doctor and then get a second opinion, and then research on your own and start to use your intuition. This is what Venus is really great for, especially in a new moon. Things can come to light that, it's always going to be a combination of information, but things can come to light where you might be saying, well, I'm starting to enter my change period, and maybe I am moving into perimenopausal, and perhaps hi, Pamela. Perhaps I'm feeling differently because of, diet or in the environment. So you want to take all these things into account. And we went to Ancestry.com. I don't know if I've mentioned this before in live events, but this is a really great thing to do. In fact, and I've passed it along to clients around the country. My doctor here in Sedona does DNA testing. And if your doctor doesn't, then email me at Elaine at astrologymojo.com, and I'll pass along her information. But we went to Ancestry.com, and you can get what's called the raw data, the raw genetic data. And so we downloaded the data, gave it to my doctor, and she sent it out to have it processed. And then we got this, 10-page report on literally the amino acids, the foods, what works, what doesn't, and even down to noise being a thing that causes anxiety for Aaliyah, or certain foods. I need a low carb diet, but I need keto as well, but I need to avoid just a fat diet. So there's a combination of things that you can look at, which kinds of B vitamins are best for your DNA, your biological makeup. So it's important to look at these things. But in the meantime, before you get that kind of a testing done, just, be smart. Know what you put into your body is going to affect everything. Food is mood. And then know that if you haven't been sleeping well, you can also check out again, check with your doctor, but you can check out something called L-theanine. It's an amino acid, and you can get the Now brand. I do. It's pretty affordable, and it's chewable, and it melts in your mouth, and I put it in my mouth right before I go to bed. And it helps to take the edge off, and I'm able to fall asleep naturally and sleep really well through the night, unless our little dog wakes us up because she's getting older. Okay, anybody have any questions about their body or about their emotional state or health? I'm happy to help with that right now. I'm just going to have my cards, and I'm just going to pull a card for everybody. For some people here in America, they have the day off. It is Columbus Day, although I'm wondering why we don't have Amerigo Vespucci Day, because I believe Amerigo was the person who actually discovered America. But anyway, Columbus discovered South America and some of the islands in between, but a lot of people have the day off. Dean and I work at home, so we take off at 5 p.m., walk the dog, and then watch something funny on TV. That's what we do. We work 7 days a week because we love it. All right, I'm going to pull a card. If nobody has any questions about health for the new moon, this is a new moon card for you to stay focused, to inquire inward about what you can do, one new thing to clean up your body, to clean up your emotions, to help get on track with the things that really matter to you, and make a list of those things. All right. Oh, look at this. I pulled the emotion card. Whoopsie. Emotion. Now, emotion is energy in motion. And so if you've been holding feelings and not really expressing, this is a great time, especially now if you are a Taurus, Scorpio, Libra, any combination, because especially for everyone, but with Venus retrograde, as I was saying in previous events, this is a really great time to check in with yourself and see, what are you holding? Because right below the surface of all the busyness, and I got to do this, and I have to check in with that. I've got to drive here. I've got to, whatever, all the whatevers. You check in, take a deep breath. How are you feeling? What's really going on emotionally? Do you need a big cry? Do you feel sad? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel frustrated? So these are the things that you just want to get in touch with before you explode or turn them in against yourself, and then you feel worse physically. Okay, so I'm just going to take another sip from these are our children, Aaliyah and Coda, when they were very small. Any questions about your body? Since we are in a 10-second delay, I'll just fill in a little bit with I will be back to talk more about the pre-phase called the shadow phase. I'll be back on Thursday to talk about the Mercury in retrograde and how you can prepare ahead of time with all your technology, all your gadgets, anything mechanical, any equipment, including cars, so that you can get everything serviced and cleaned up and ready and prepared so you can back up your stuff. Okay? So as I see there are no questions, we're keeping it short today. Go enjoy your day. If you're in the U.S., enjoy your holiday. And thank you for being here. I wish you peace, and I'll be back on Thursday. Be well, everyone.